If you are in need of dental work but don't want to pay for it, listen carefully. A new service is
My name is Philippe Simet. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. I'm in Nepal, in Mustang district, northwest of Kathmandu. It's here that the citadel of Lo-Montong sits on a plateau at an altitude of 4,000 meters. The walled town was founded by a Tibetan king, Amepal, in the late 14th century. It lies on the Salt Road, once an important trade route linking the plateaus of Tibet to the valley of the river Ganges. Formerly the capital of the Kingdom of Mustang, Lo-Montong is now totally cut off from the rest of the world, lost in the solitude of the Himalayas. Despite the altitude, the extreme cold, the raging winds, and the vast distances separating them from civilization, 800 people live here all year round. They are the Lobas. The town is a 2-hour helicopter flight from Kathmandu. It would have taken me 3 days to get here by car. I wonder how the Lobas manage to live their daily lives here in total isolation. Bathed by an early spring light and surrounded by snow-covered mountains, Lo-Montong seems intact, preserved as though the harshness of the elements had no hold over it. I head to the entrance of the town to meet one of its inhabitants. I want to find out how daily life is set up within its walls.
Namaste.
Hello. Welcome to Lo-Montong.
Horses and goats, and lives in one of the town's oldest.
Hello. Welcome to Lo-Montong. Let me take you to my home.
Thank you. Let's go. Karma Angel Gurung has always lived in Lo-Montong, like the majority of inhabitants. He rears yaks, horses, and goats, and lives in one of the town's oldest houses. The streets are incredibly narrow.
Yes, and there are a lot of them with very high walls to protect us from the wind.
In Mustang district, the winds can blow at over 70 kilometers an hour. The outer wall, called Chagri, also gives the town its shape. Most of the houses back onto it and are not allowed to be built higher than the wall. Karma takes me through the maze of streets which he knows like the back of his hand.
Here we are. This is my house.
It's really beautiful.
According to Tibetan tradition, we decorate houses with several colors: yellow for wisdom, white for compassion, and blue for protection.
And the green, what does that represent?
Oh, nothing at all. I just added it because it looks nice. Let's go inside. We store our food downstairs. Our grain and the meat we dry. And we live upstairs, where it's warmer. Philippe, this is my wife, Tashiagmu Gurung.
Namaste. Have you always lived in Lo Montang?
Yes, I was born and raised here. And the town hasn't changed a bit. It's still protected by its walls. It has survived the test of time because everyone has joined together in preserving its structure and its resources.
The buildings of Lo Montang are well preserved, but has there been much change in the lifestyle of the inhabitants?
Yes, there have been changes. We only have the strict minimum here, and it's hard to make a living. So in the winter, the youngsters go down into the city to open stores and earn money before coming back here with the things we lack.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Before, in the winter, the Lobas used to leave their town and go down onto the plains to trade. In a way, young men and women are continuing the tradition, which keeps the town stocked up.
I've never left here, not even in winter. When the temperature gets too low, I drink a lot of hot tea. It's butter tea. We add salt to it to give us strength.
You're stronger afterwards.
Yes.
Thanks.
Go ahead. Taste my butter tea.
It's very different.
True. It takes some getting used to.
Surrounded by the high peaks of the Himalayas, Lo Montang doesn't benefit from the monsoon like the rest of Nepal. A climatic specificity that limits agriculture to one harvest a year, mainly grains like wheat, barley, and buckwheat. The rearing of yaks, horses, and goats completes the Lobas' meager resources. In this desert at altitude, rain is scarce, so water management needs to be strictly controlled to have enough for household purposes and to irrigate the fields. Inside the town, this vital resource is distributed via an ingenious system of water conduits. Karma's son Tsuong is one of the townspeople who keeps the system running smoothly. Lo Montang is located close to a spring. I guess it's a very precious resource.
Our water comes from the peaks of the Himalayas, but it's very scarce, so we have to be extremely careful with it. The town's water supply is managed by a group of 6 people, and I'm one of them. It's my job to make sure the water's distributed correctly. Today we're directing towards that land there, but in a few days' time we'll redirect it elsewhere. If the water level drops, I have to quickly find out what's causing it. Someone might be diverting it, or an object might be blocking the conduits. The town needs a regular supply of water because we use it to wash our clothes and dishes. The conduits are also crucial if ever there's an outbreak of fire.
The streets follow the slope of the terrain and the network of conduits, so that inhabitants have easy access to water. Any surplus is collected in a reservoir and filtered for drinking water. The Lobas consider this resource as a common asset, and this water ensures the sustainability of Lo Montong. When you live in a place as isolated as this, everyone has to contribute to preserving the town.
The two most important things we need to preserve in Lo Montong are water and the walls. If I notice that part of the wall near my house is damaged, I repair it. This wall was first built in the late 14th century to protect us from attack coming from China or Ladakh. Fortunately, we're not at war anymore, but the wall is still vital to the town. When there's an earthquake, it's the wall that keeps the houses standing. So that's why all the inhabitants maintain it.
Repairing the clay brick wall requires a simple technique which Tsuwong masters well. Like all the inhabitants of Lo Montong, he does maintenance work several times a year. It's just earth and water.
Yes, earth which I collected from a field. I just have to make sure there's no straw or stones in it. Go on, Philippe. Try laying a brick.
Okay, this one?
Careful, it's heavy.
So the bricks are simply left to dry?
Yes, because at this altitude wood is scarce, so we can't fire the bricks. That's why we've always used this technique. Once dry, we shape them.
And now you fill in the gaps.
Yes? We cover them with clay.
You have to pat it in and smooth it quickly or it doesn't hold. This is really the original technique.
This technique works perfectly well, so we continue to use it. Plus, we want to keep the wall in its original state.
I see. Well, it's starting to hold, but there's still lots to do.
Yes, I'll carry on tomorrow.
In Lo Montong, there are walls everywhere, thick yet fragile at the same time, casting intangible shadows and colors that change as the sun turns in the sky. The walls symbolize the Lobas' struggle to keep their culture alive while confronted by the short-lived nature of the clay and the ravages of time. This evening, Karma has invited me to dinner at his house, a chance for me to see what the Lobas eat and how they cook it. In their own way, the dishes of Mustang reflect the harshness of life in this arid, barren land. Is this the only heated room?
Hardly anyone has electricity here. It's not like in your country. We don't have radiators. At this altitude, there's no wood or coal to heat the homes, so we use yak dung. We leave it to dry and then feed the stove with it. So we spend a lot of time in this room. We've adapted to our climate. I have something to show you. It's a prayer wheel. It contains mantras, the teachings of Buddha.
Oh, yes. The rolls of mantras are inside.
That's right.
There are lots of them. It's very filling.
It fills you up. It's a traditional dish, mashed buckwheat. It's really good. You add some yak butter.
Oh, right, some butter.
And you make little balls.
Like this?
Go on, tuck in.
Okay, I make little balls and dip them in the sauce, right?
What do you think?
Really good.
Okay. Okay. We'll finish dinner, and then it's time for bed.
Okay, very well. Carmen's right. At 4,000 meters altitude, the day's activities take their toll. Fatigue soon overcomes the body, despite the Loba's incredible robustness and resilience. In this walled town, high up in the mountains, religion has a central place in life. All Lobas are practicing Tibetan Buddhists. Temples and other religious buildings are the keystone of their culture. Yet they have left them to fall into disrepair due to a lack of means. But restoration work is finally underway, thanks to financial backing from a foundation in the United States and the skills of expert restorer Luigi Fieni. I didn't expect to run into an Italian in Lo Montang. How did you end up working here?
I'm kind of here by chance.
Really?
In 1999, I thought I'd be here working on a project for a few months. But it turned into 19 years, and I'm still here.
That's quite a long time.
It is. It's part of my life now.
I get the impression that the buildings require a lot of maintenance.
They're all built in clay, which is a material that needs constant upkeep. Every year, they paint their houses with a layer of liquid clay to protect them from the winds and the rain. And on top of the weather, there are unpredictable events like the earthquake of 2015.
Did it destroy a lot of buildings here?
Quite a few. The structures are in clay, which absorbs most of the shocks, but the houses and buildings are full of cracks.
They've been weakened.
Exactly.
What led you to start restoring the monastery in particular?
When the foundation came here, they asked the Lobas what they needed. They thought they would say a hospital, a school, etc. But their answer was completely different. They said, if you really want to help us, our culture is found on religion, so start by restoring our monasteries. At first, it was a nightmare, but it has turned into a real gift, because helping the people restore their buildings and safeguard their culture is an incredible experience.
Luigi is teaching the inhabitants how to conserve their architectural heritage. He shows me the work going on in the Tubshen Temple, the largest of the 4 temples in the town.
It's time to choose.
Why not both?
Arnold Palmer Spiked.
This is the entrance to the monastery.
What are they up there, dragons?
They're lions. They're found in a lot of monasteries because they protect them from evil spirits and demons.
Will they let us in?
Oh, there's a good chance.
We'll see. Wow, it's really magnificent.
Yes, this room is really vast. It's amazing.
When was it built?
It was consecrated in 1472. It was the main monastery of the Lo Manthang community. There were several religious buildings here, but the most important was Thubchen. When we first came in here, everything was covered in varnish, paint, and clay had run from the ceiling, and most of the paintings were very badly damaged. You see that Buddha? It had lost its knees. We started by working on the existing original paint, and we taught the locals how to restore it. But when they saw the results, they said, okay, it's beautiful, it's very colourful, but there are things missing. The knees, the hands, the feet, so we can't pray to it. So now we're restoring the whole thing and replacing the missing pieces because the locals want a real living monastery and not a museum.
To allow lay people into this holy place, a monk had to perform a ceremony before work could begin. Using a mirror, he captured the soul of each divinity present in the frescoes. This strange procedure deconsecrates the images, so they are no longer spiritual and no longer inhabited by the divine. They're simply material traces. A clever way of authorizing the inhabitants, and notably women who are considered impure, to touch the works, remove the pigments, and proceed with their restoration.
Yandoka? Bonjour.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Restoring a monastery like this is a mammoth task.
It's true, it's a huge amount of work. We started by cleaning all the columns and the ceiling. We followed that up by cleaning the walls before starting the first work on the paintings. We're so lucky to have been taught the techniques of restoration. Now we can protect the heritage and culture of our town by ourselves.
Before becoming a restorer, what was your job?
Before starting in the monastery as a painter, I worked mainly in the fields. These days, I do both. I go out early in the morning to feed the cattle, and I spend the rest of the time in here.
The way the Lobas have taken their cultural and religious heritage into their own hands is remarkable. This temple is their most precious monument. They decided to make it their own and restore it in their own way so as to remain its masters and keep it alive. The town will therefore remain a religious capital and a pilgrimage destination for Buddhists. Paradoxically, religion now brings thousands of pilgrims to Lo Montang, where in the 7th century it was the need for solitude and silence that led Tibetan Buddhism to establish itself here. One of the monks, Phung Chuk, offers to show me what's left of Konchuk Ling Cave, carved out of the rock some 800 years ago. So 3 centuries before the founding of Lo Montang, holy men were already coming here to meditate.
The people of Lo Montang weren't the first to settle up here in the mountains. Here there are thousands of caves where men came in search of isolation. The cave we're going to is very difficult to reach. The horse can't go any further. We'll continue on foot.
The climb is exhausting, and the lack of oxygen is cruelly felt. But walking, with my body in pain and my breath faltering, brings me immeasurable pleasure as we near the summit.
Here we are, Philippe, at Konchuk Ling Cave. We made it. Are you okay?
Fine.
As you can see, the walls of the cave are covered in 13th century paintings. They're of the Mahasiddhas, mythical Indian figures that influenced Tibet.